What do you know about the beautiful state of Rhode Island? To start with, the beaches are pristine, the food is superb, and the hotels are relaxing. And there are countless things to do and see, including art museums, history tours, boating, hiking, the Gilded Age Newport Mansions, and hundreds of exciting events each year. Do you know what else? You should visit Rhode Island today. Learn more and plan your trip at visitrhodeisland.com.
The Big Bark, listen up dog owners, it's for you, all you canine lovers. It's your favorite podcast, The Big Bark, with your host Darragh Bourke and canine co-hosts Bruno and Milly. The Big Bark.
Hello, my name is Darragh Bourke and welcome to another episode of The Big Bark, the show that is barking mad about your dog, where we discuss the hottest topics from the canine world, meet with canine professionals, and chat to dog owners about the bonds that make a dog man's best friend. Joining me, as always, somewhere floating around there, I don't really know where. There's a chicken cooking in the kitchen, so they might be gone for that. But my good old pals, Bruno and Milly. And we're joined today virtually by Ciaran Kennedy from Limerick Canine Physio, who will be our co-host for today, as we chat about all things canine physiotherapy. So later on, we'll be putting some questions to Ciaran that were sent in to us by dog owners over the last week, so stick around for that. And a bit later on after that, we'll be meeting with Ciaran Sheehan from Mutt Mitts Ireland. So Ciaran will be telling us all about his product, and we'll be having a look at that. First of all, let me welcome Ciaran there to the show. Ciaran, very welcome.
Hi Darragh, how are you?
Not too bad in yourself.
I'm not too bad now. I'm excited to be involved. It's great.
Good. Glad to have you here. And Ciaran, so start off and we'll give you the spotlight for a few minutes. Tell us exactly what it is that you do.
So I am a veterinary physiotherapist, but I suppose I'm also a fully qualified veterinary nurse. So that's what I started off doing. First of all, I qualified from UCD in 2006. And then I worked for a few years in Treaty Veterinary Clinic in Thomondgate as a veterinary nurse. So in 2009, then I went to Australia and I worked for a year in a referral hospital over there in Sydney. And it was there that I saw the benefits of veterinary physiotherapy. So I realised how lacking it was in Ireland, which was a shock at the time. So I was determined then when I would get home that I would become qualified in the area and start working in it. So in 2010, then I went to the UK to Harper Adams University, and that's where I studied veterinary physiotherapy. I had to do it through, I went part-time, so I went over and back to the UK while I worked as a veterinary nurse at the time. And became qualified after 2 years. So since then, I've just been working. I did a combination of nursing and physio, but over the years now, it's just kind of narrowed it down to just physio. So I've worked between Cork and Galway and Limerick, doing small animal physiotherapy. So it's just dogs and cats mainly that I treat. So it's great, really. It's becoming more popular now. It was very lacking, I think, at the start, but this year in particular is the busiest year that I've had treating small animals. So it's really, really great to see that.
Okay, that's great. And it must be a very interesting career. Like you said, there's not many people really doing it in Ireland.
No, yeah, it is. It's great. It's really interesting and it's really rewarding as well. It's definitely very different to veterinary nursing, whereas I kind of thought it would be similar. And I do use my nursing skills all the time, I suppose, in physiotherapy, but it's a very, very different approach. It's really calm and relaxing. And it took me a while to get used to that, actually. I was always rushing. And then I realized I had loads of time, so I didn't know why I was rushing. But it's very, very rewarding. We build up a trust with the patients, which is nice. You don't really have enough time to do that in the nursing world. So I usually spend about an hour with my patients, and by the end of it, I use a lot of treats, bribes, and they really love that. So they, once they're used to me, they're coming running in the door to me, which is lovely to see that in the vets as well, because most dogs hate coming into the vets. So when you see them coming running in the door to me, it's really, really nice. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, what you said there about most dogs hate the vets. My own two dogs, actually, Bruno Milly, go out to Tree, out to John outside.
Oh, very good.
And we actually had, I think was it Aoife, I think last year that we had on, I believe, on the show. It could have been
Oh,
Aoife,
yes,
I think.
yeah.
And we had a live session from Tree there sometime there last year, like, and that was great fun. And like that was actually our first live show. But Bruno, like the minute he walks into the vet, it's kind of like where am I? What's going on here? And he quickly realizes, like, no, I want to go. Whereas Millie actually spent, I think, was it 2 to 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks out with John there last year. Like she stayed in because she had what was it? She had to have her womb removed for pyometria.
Okay.
And like every time Millie goes back there now, she loves going into the door.
She thinks she's part of the family.
Exactly, yeah. So, Karen, what would be the most typical injuries that you would actually treat?
Yeah, I suppose I do see a lot of injuries, but the majority of what I see would be kind of like degenerative or chronic conditions. So you're talking about the likes of osteoarthritis and cranial cruciate ligament disease or intervertebral disc disease, that kind of a thing. They would be the majority of what I see. Injuries, I suppose, would be common enough as well. So like dogs who get hit by a car might have pelvic fractures or might have broken a leg and have had surgery for that, and they would need a lot of rehabilitation after their surgery. So that would be common enough. And then you would see muscle strains and ligament tears and that kind of thing as well. So it is very varied, but I suppose my most common patient that I would treat is going to be your kind of typical stiffer, getting older type dog, starting to slow down and struggle with certain movements that would be associated with osteoarthritis usually. So that would be that and cruciate ligament disease. They'd be my most common kind of cases that I would see every week.
And you work on a referral basis, is that correct? Yeah,
so I only work strictly through veterinary referrals. So your vet will have to refer you on for treatment with me. So I think it's really important that a physiotherapist generally should work alongside a veterinary surgeon, really, and it should be, a team effort, really. So I always kind of keep in touch with the referring vet and determine the best treatment and the best course going forward with them. So it's very important to me that the patient is referred through their vet.
Brilliant. And like, where exactly, like, where did you actually? You said you learned about this in Australia, but what kind of gave you the, like, I suppose, the jump from vet nursing to physiotherapy?
I think it was always kind of in the back of my mind. So I do remember back in UCD when I was studying nursing, I remember we did one lecture in the whole 3 years that I studied on veterinary physiotherapy. And I remember thinking at the time, this is so important in the human world. So why is it not as important for animals? And that always stuck with me. So I always kind of, looked into it. But back in the early days at the time, you had to be a chartered human physio to go on and study veterinary physio. So that always kind of made me go, oh, well, I suppose that's not an option then. And I remember at the time thinking, well, this should be something that nurses should be better trained in. It should be a huge part of their training. But then around the time that I went to Australia and I started to see, qualified physios in action, that's when I think some of the courses came into play where they were aimed at veterinary professionals instead. So vets and veterinary nurses and a lot of people in the equine industry, they were all targeted, so that they could study veterinary physiotherapy and become qualified in the area. So then that was game changing for me, obviously. So that's really what did it. It was that a course became available that I could do. So I jumped at that opportunity.
And is there many people in Ireland now actually doing it? Or I know I saw on Instagram there, a friend of yours, I think another physio actually shared the post as well. So yeah, it doesn't seem to be common though.
It's still not that common, but there's more and more of us every year, I suppose, becoming qualified. So
yeah.
I suppose that person that shared it, that's Deirdre Duggan. So she's from Pet Paws Physio down in Cork, and I worked with Dee in Galabi Veterinary Hospital. She taught me everything I knew about hydrotherapy down in the pool in Galabi. So she's amazing. And back when I was working with Dee, back then there was only a few of us. And I remember when I started going down to Cork, she was so excited that there was somebody else, in the area that she could just talk to about it, because it's really hard to work on your own. When vets first qualify, they have each other, same with nurses. So it is really, really hard in the beginning. But I've seen a lot of interest in people doing courses definitely over the last few years, and then more and more people becoming qualified. So it is becoming more available for sure, definitely.
And you mentioned hydrotherapy. Like, that's something that I'm seeing myself that's become really, really big in Ireland in the last few years.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. You get really, really good results with hydrotherapy. There's no facility in Limerick currently that I know of anyway. There's a few very good facilities in Cork, and I think there's somewhere in Kildare as well. But you need to be careful with hydrotherapy that you're still having what we like to call it is water-based physiotherapy. So you make sure that you're getting, a hydrotherapist that's really well qualified in the area, because it needs to be done correctly for it to be beneficial. So that's one of the most important things. But I suppose there's an opportunity there for somebody. It's not going to be me to set up hydrotherapy in Limerick. Maybe if I won the lotto, I would do it. Maybe we'll see. But it would be amazing to have it in Limerick. Like, the results are just phenomenal with the pool. But it is important that it's done correctly. It can, things can go wrong as well.
Yeah, and I think myself, like even my own dogs, they love water. So would you ever see, for instance, where dogs are nervous going into the hydrotherapy tank or?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, they're all nervous going in, because it's not like, when you take your dog swimming, you're generally kind of going down to a river or going to the beach and they're running around and they're having a great laugh. But for hydrotherapy, all of a sudden they're brought into a very strange atmosphere. With the pools aren't very big for hydrotherapy. They don't need to be very big. So they see them and they're like, that's just a big bath. And most dogs don't like being washed. And it takes a lot of building up their trust to get them into the water, because it has to be a real positive experience for them. There's no point in forcing them into it. They have to willingly get in and, realize this is really good and I feel really good after this. And then they'll want to get in quicker the next time. So, but initially it definitely, it's not as positive as you would think for their first session. It takes up a while, and every dog is different. Some of them do run in, but some people will say, oh, my dog loves swimming, and they're the ones that'll be most nervous of it. And then other people say, oh, my dog hates swimming. And then, after a few sessions, they just adore it. So every dog will love it in the end, but it does take a little while to get them used to it, for sure.
So we're talking here with Ciaran Kennedy from Limerick Canine Physio. We're live on Facebook and YouTube and on the bigbark.ie. Ciaran, tell us what a typical day would involve for you.
I'm just working in Limerick at the moment, so I did give up going to Galway and Cork in the end. I had 2 babies, so I have 2 babies at home. So I'm sticking to Limerick at the moment, but it is quite busy at the moment. So your average consult is going to be, I'll do an assessment first of all, assess their muscle mass and their muscle tone, and watch how they move, and pick up on any abnormalities or bad habits that they can get into. A lot of dogs can cheat really, really easily, and their owners might not notice that. And when we're watching them moving, we're looking for these subtle little changes that have happened over time, and that will only lead to further muscle loss and bad habits going forward. So we pick up on all of these things quite early, and then I will treat all of these things, and I'll do some movement therapies and correct the ways that they're moving and doing transitions. And a lot of dogs will sit badly, so they'll have poor posture when they're sitting, so we'll work on that a lot. And you also have kind of therapeutic handling techniques like massage and stretching, just gentle kind of movements like that. And I use electrotherapies as well in my consult, so they would be aimed at providing pain relief, most importantly, and encouraging healing, getting blood flowing, circulation flowing, and they also relax them quite a lot. So they really enjoy that part of the consult. And then the most important part, I suppose, is that they get a prescribed home exercise program that they go home with. So I call it homework, where they have to work on something every day. And then every time I see them, I'll check on these exercises to make sure that they're improving on them. And the aim of those, I suppose, is to help to keep your dog mobile, and to strengthen any weakened muscles, correct any bad movement, and just improve their overall quality of life, really.
That's brilliant. It sounds like a lot that you do. I suppose if you think of a human physiotherapist as well, there is a lot that is involved that people won't know about. But there's definitely a lot that involved with animal physiotherapy that I never realized myself.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting, actually. But I suppose the beauty of it is that my consults are about 45 minutes to an hour long. So that's why there's so much involved in it, whereas the vet consults are typically 15, 20 minutes. So they're always rushing. But I'm always just, taking my time and making sure the dog loves me, and then going from there. So it's really nice to have the time, really, to build up a trust with them. And then if they're relaxed, if they're on board with you, that's when you get the best results. So if it's a positive experience for them, they get more out of it and they work harder. So you get better long-term results with it then.
That's brilliant. And Ciaran, how has, I suppose, the 2 lockdowns and COVID and all that we've had this year, how has it affected consultations?
Initially, I was actually, for our first lockdown back in March, I was still on maternity leave. So I was just due to come back from maternity leave and I was like, oh God, what's happening now? So that was a bit stressful at the time. But once that lockdown was lifted, that's when I came back. And I was actually blown away with how busy things were, because I just thought that, nobody would be doing anything. But I suppose all of a sudden everybody has time to spend with their dogs now. And a lot of people got new dogs as well. And it's a whole other topic. But like all aspects of veterinary just seem to be really, really busy since March. For the second lockdown, I suppose we kind of learned from the first one. So even though I wasn't really working for the first one, but I realized that, you have to be able to say what's essential and what's not essential. And we agreed that, physiotherapy is definitely an essential treatment for them. There's a lot of pain relief involved in it. And it's really, really important. So I decided that I would go forward with treating them. And I suppose I just give my clients the option of leaving their dog with me if they're not comfortable staying in the consult room. The downside of my treatment is that it's a long period of time, so it's not a short consult. So I'll try and minimize the time in the actual consult room if I can. The other kind of problem with it is that most dogs are more relaxed for physio when their owner is with them. The odd dog is better without their owner, but that's rare enough. So most owners will want to stay with their dog. So it is quite difficult, but we're working around it and we're finding ways to make it better and to make the risks fewer. So it's a challenging time for sure.
Brilliant. And Karen, we'll be moving on to the Q&A there, but we have a question after coming in on Facebook there. And this comes in from, let me see, hold on. Here's one here. What is the most important thing to look out for with older dogs? Shane, thanks for your question there.
With older dogs, I suppose what you want to keep an eye on is their everyday movement, so their functional movement. Anything that they start to struggle with is a sign of deterioration or a sign of, joint disease or anything like that going on. So if you have like a normal, healthy dog and he's active and happy to exercise and everything like that, then I would just start getting into the habit of watching him move when he's on a walk. Watching the basic things like toileting, that he's able to squat to go to the toilet with no problems, or all those little things that you don't look at on a normal day. Start keeping note of those. You want to look out for weight gain as well. So as they get older, they tend to put on weight, and excess weight is going to go against them when it comes to joints. So it's really, really important that you weigh them regularly, because obviously, when you're looking at them every day, you don't see it creep up. So you need to get them on scales really regularly. Make sure that weight isn't creeping up. And also, as they start to do less exercise as they get older, reduce the amount of food that they're having, because they don't need that much energy then. So that is a really, really important thing. And a common thing that I see in older dogs is obesity and excessive weight gain. I suppose you want to also kind of get some joint supplements on board. As they get older, I kind of recommend it regardless whether they have joint disease or not. Most older dogs will have some kind of joint disease anyway, so definitely start getting the joint supplements into them at an early enough stage, really. And just, keep note of what they're happy to do and what they're not happy to do, because the dog will tell you a lot themselves if you just watch them and if you listen to them.
And just on what you said there, we have an echo there, I don't know what's going on. Just what you said, there's with the supplements, what supplements would you actually recommend?
There's so many different types of supplements out there at the moment, so it's a real minefield. But if you were to look at the clinical evidence regarding all of these supplements, the ones that show the best results are omega-3 fatty acids. So those are available. If you look at all of these joint disease prescription diets, they'll have a high percentage of those in the food. So that's a great way to get those into them, because apparently if you want to be able to give them a high enough dosage of this, they won't tolerate it in a supplement form. It's too hard in the stomach, so it has to be included in their actual food for them to be able to get a high enough dose of it to be effective. So I would make sure that that's in their food first and foremost. The glucosamine and all those kind of joint supplements, chondroitin and all those that have been around for years, apparently the clinical evidence behind those is quite minimal actually. Unless they're given for a very long time, you will see some results with them, but they are really easily digested and tolerated. So it's no harm for them to be getting them, but just make sure that you're getting the omega-3 fatty acids on board as well. Another really popular one at the moment is the green lipid mussel as well. So that's got the omega-3 fatty acids in that too. So, and that's in a lot of the new joint supplements, I think. So that's something that I would recommend, but I'm not an expert in this area at all. It's definitely something to discuss with your vet too. But that's what I give my dogs, I suppose. I'll put it that way. They're on the Hills JD prescription diet, so that's high in the omega-3 fatty acids, and they get a supplement as well that has the green lipid mussel in it too.
Fantastic. And we have another question in here from Lydia. Lydia says, any tips on dog hip dysplasia?
Yeah, I suppose most dogs will be diagnosed with hip dysplasia when they're quite young, so you'll see it when they're pups, really. The first thing that people notice is that they walk a bit funny and wobbly, and they can be really weak on the back legs. So it can seem really dramatic when they're younger, and it's important to remember that it does settle a lot as they get bigger. And as they get older, so don't panic too much. You know, when people have young dogs first diagnosed with, they start to panic and start to Google, you know, about hip replacement surgery and all this kind of thing. But it's very, very rare that they need to go forward to have hip replacement surgery. They want to be really, really bad cases. So don't panic too much. What I would suggest is, while they're young, is to get them on controlled exercise. So lots of lead walking. That's going to keep them strong going forward. And there's lots of kind of other exercises that you can do that can target certain muscles that will strengthen them as well going forward. So the stronger you can get them, the better as they go into kind of adulthood. So like I would be suggesting for dogs diagnosed with hip dysplasia to definitely have a physiotherapy consult and get a prescribed home exercise program. Even if it's one consult that you have, at least you have these exercises to do and to get them strong as they're getting older, really.
Fantastic. And I'm going to move on there now. I'm just bring up the questions here for, let me see where these questions. I think that's it. Yeah, perfect. Let's see, is that showing up there? Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so we have a few questions that have come in here. First of all, actually, Zoe here has sent in a few questions. My 4-year-old rescue greyhound Robert has an old muscle injury in his right hind leg. It doesn't cause him any pain, but in the winter it seems to stiffen up. This is a 2-part question, by the look of it. We make sure to do warm-ups before walks and the like, feed a whole food diet rich in glucosamine, and make sure to avoid heavy wear on that leg. 99% of the time it doesn't bother him, and we have spent the last 2 years building up the stamina and muscle tone for hiking. Any advice on keeping that leg good?
Okay, it's kind of hard to know without knowing exactly which muscle is involved and the degree of injury that occurred. But I suppose it's important to kind of remember that, she says here that 99% of the time that he's okay. So that's good. That would tell me that maybe the injury wasn't too severe and that he's made a good recovery as well. So that is definitely good. But going forward, she's right to kind of be mindful of it. And heat packs and stretches to the affected muscle are important, especially in winter, as she says, when he starts to stiffen up. So without knowing which muscle is involved, it's hard to know what stretches to do. So that's where a physio consult would be important for this dog as well, and do an assessment of all the muscles really in that leg, just make sure that everything's okay. But once you kind of know which muscle is involved, then the stretches will really, really help in the winter, I think. Also, you want to kind of get an assessment to check, is that muscle strong enough? So just in case, like, that dog could be avoiding using it. And like she says, 99% of the time he's fine. But dogs, like I said earlier, are really, really good cheaters. So he could look like he's walking perfectly and have no issues, but he could be very slightly offloading that side. And then even though it's a really slight kind of alteration that he makes, he can weaken very dramatically in that muscle as a result. So you want to check that muscle is nice and strong, and then I suppose prescribed exercises can be given to help target that particular muscle or that muscle group and strengthen on it going forward, get him in.
I'm an aficionado.
I'm a sneakerhead.
I'm a foodie. Gamer.
I'm a gym rat.
There are many names for enthusiast.
A fashionista.
But there's only one way to become one. By going all in. The Lexus IS Sports Sedan is our obsession. Relentlessly engineered and designed to be the most responsive IS ever. It's what we call going all in on the sports sedan. The Lexus IS. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Click the banner to discover more.
When you shop at a Walmart Vision Center, you get it. You know that you'll spend a little less on stylish glasses for the whole family.
Welcome to the Vision Center. Let me know if you need help finding the perfect frames.
Hey, Mom, you were right. These glasses are cool.
Hon, they take our insurance. That means Papa's getting a new pair, too.
Whoa, glasses start at just $39. Next stop, groceries.
So you can get a little more of what you need. Find a Vision Center near you. Save money, live better. Walmart.
Engaging it and get him loading properly, so that he doesn't have any issues going forward with weakening. So I suppose the physio is beneficial for him.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Karen. Okay, so let's move on here. Bring back up the screen, and this is another one from Zoe. Zoe loves sending in her questions each week to us. My foster greyhound is recovering well from a spay, but seems to be having trouble squatting to pee. Thought this might be from stiffness from the surgery, but it's been 2 weeks now. The incision is healed up, and she's still having issues, mainly standing up before she finishes urinating. Vet said to give it time, but she feels uncomfortable when she finishes her business. Do you think it's a sign of spay incontinence or a muscle joint issue?
I think 2 weeks after surgery is probably too early to be thinking about urinary incontinence, so I wouldn't worry about that just yet. An important thing to note is that squatting and toileting is a huge functional and a really important functional movement for dogs. And there's a lot of different muscles involved in performing this movement. And this is why as dogs get older, they struggle with toileting because the squatting involves, a really strong core and good core stability to be able to perform the movement. So I don't know if you've ever had any abdominal surgery yourself, but it is quite a lot for the dogs to undergo. So even though the wound itself might have healed, there's layers of sutures underneath that again, and it would have gone through muscle layers as well that will take longer to heal. And definitely my hunch anyway is that as that dog is squatting, she's using and stretching all of those muscles still, so it still would probably be quite uncomfortable for her to do that. So my hunch is that it's still a result of the surgery, and that it will take another few weeks for her to be, feeling normal again. But it is important to keep an eye on her, and you should expect to see an improvement each week. So each week she should get a little bit better and should, not notice it as much. If you're not getting that, then I would definitely go back and talk to your vet. Or if you really are concerned that there's a urinary issue going on, then maybe get a urine sample looked at as well in case there's a UTI or anything like that. But my hunch tells me that it's a functional thing and that she's just still feeling, that wound from the surgery.
Okay, Karen. And thank you, Zoe, for sending those questions there. Zoe's a huge fan of the show and was actually on herself a couple of months back. Her greyhound, Robert, was the runner-up in the Nose of Tralee this year. So that's a pretty big thing for a dog owners these days. Okay, so let's move on. There's no name on the next few here. My dog is old and has hip arthritis. How much should I walk him? He loves going for a walk.
Okay, but the first thing is that it's good that he loves going for a walk. So that's a really great sign. That's one of the first things that I look for, really. So the fact that he loves going for a walk tells me that he's, quite comfortable in himself. So that's great. It's hard to know without knowing how active and how able your dog is. So you need to it's case by case, but the general rule that I have for older dogs walking is that little and often is key. So you want them to walk enough that they're engaging the muscles and they're using their joints, but that they're not overdoing it and causing pain either. So if they have osteoarthritis, you want to kind of walk them to a point where they're not going to be stiff later, or they're not going to feel it that evening or the next day. If you're getting to that point where they're stiff after it, you've done too much. So that's one way of judging it. It's important as well when you're walking them to go at quite a controlled, continuous pace. So I always recommend going slow enough that they place their feet correctly and they're engaging their muscles more correctly that way. So that's more strengthening for them. If they go fast and they're trotting along and bouncing along, they're not actually engaging their muscles as well as they do when they're going slow. So keep the pace nice and controlled and slow. For old dogs, it is important to let them have their time as well of sniffing and having a wander and a potter. I had a client before that called their dog going out for a sniff, reading the paper for dogs. So it's really important that they get that time as well for their brain to go out and sniff and see who's been where and who's doing what. But do make sure that you integrate then the continuous kind of controlled pace of walking as well. Apart from that, I would also just recommend doing heat packs maybe in the evenings for an older dog after walks, if they're happy to have that sitting on the couch or whatever. Heat is great to stop stiffness developing. But I mean, the walking, it's great that he is happy to do it because it's good. It keeps their joints moving, keeps their muscles engaged, keeps them strong and keeps them active and strong. So I would recommend doing 2 to 3 short walks a day rather than one big long one. And see how that works out for them. But if it, as I say, if it's causing stiffness or pain, then reduce it back. Find the balance. It's important to find the balance. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, we go for a walk every day, but he's very sore the next day, or he's very sore that evening, and they don't realize that it's the walk that has caused that. So it's too much. If they get that result, then it's too much for them. They need to cut it back.
Okay. Very good. We have voice there. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. What is the... Okay, we answered that actually already, so we'll skip that question. What is the average number of session a dog needs?
It depends really on the dog and the case, so it's very case specific. But I suppose for new cases, initially, it can be quite intense. So depending on what's going on, I would usually recommend seeing them sometimes weekly, sometimes fortnightly for a little while, until we start to get good results. And then as we start to get the results, I tend to spread out the sessions a little bit longer. So I'll start to see them monthly, every 6 weeks. I have some dogs coming to me who've been coming to me long term, with osteoarthritis or whatever, and I'll see them maybe even every 8 weeks, and they just come in and touch base with me, and we do an assessment to make sure that everything's okay, and we'll change things up a little bit depending on what we find. So really, it depends on what we're treating, but the general rule will be that it'll be quite intense to begin with, and then becomes less and less as we go on.
Okay, great, Karen. And we're going to take one more, because I'm looking here at the last question regarding the dog's behaviour. That would be more something that we could ask, I think, to Samantha Rawson when we have her back on again. And Samantha was the behaviourist we had on last week. So I think you'd agree that's more a behaviour type question, the bottom one there. So the last question I'll put to you here, are physiotherapy costs generally covered by pet insurance?
Yeah, usually they'd be covered. I think what the insurance companies look for is that the vet has recommended the physiotherapy and referred on for physiotherapy. So that is another reason why a referral is important. Every insurance company is different, so just check in with your own insurance company to be sure. Some of them will cover a certain amount of sessions, and some will cover more, some will cover less. And you can get pre-authorization if you want to before you come for your session, and make sure that they will cover it. But generally, as long as your vet has recommended it, then most will cover it.
It's brilliant. Okay, so that's the end of the Q&A. Karen, thanks for taking all those questions.
Right.
That was really good. And now we're going to move on, because we have a product that we want to talk about, and we're bringing in the actual owner of that company here, Ciaran Sheehan. Ciaran, we've had you on before, but welcome back to the Big Bark.
Good afternoon, Darragh. It's great to be back on the Big Bark. Karen, a mine of information there. Learned an awful lot about how to treat dogs, so that's fantastic.
That's good.
So, Ciaran, your new website went live only there a couple of months ago. How has Mutt Mitts been going? Actually, first of all, tell us, what is a Mutt Mitt? Ciaran, you have to mute yourself again.
Can't beat this new technology.
I don't think you could be any technology, to be honest. But sure.
You can't beat it. You can't beat just telling people what the issue is, rather than this fancy phones. I apologize, I'm on a phone today because my computer, just when you want it to work, didn't. So anyway, a Mutt Mitt is a bag that you use to pick up dog falling. So it's very simple. It's like Mutt, when you get the name Mutt is a kind of a trendy name for a dog, and then Mitt is like a bag, like a glove. So they're like dog gloves. So there you go. You put your hand into it, wrap your hand around the issue at hand, and then wrap the bag down over it and put it into a bin. So it's very simple.
That sounds pretty simple. I don't have any next to me here. They're actually out in the car. Oh wait, I actually do. Hold on. I knew I brought one in. So this is actually what they look like.
Correct.
That's the ones. And I tried to do a video on this a while ago, but my dogs are a bit camera shy, so that wasn't going to really happen. But literally what Ciaran was saying, you put your hand in, just scoop down, and you just turn it inside out like that.
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
It can be used as I often use it if I forget to bring the dog's bowl with me. The bottom bar can actually be formed into a water bowl as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's true. It's very handy in both ways. Like if you see at the bottom of it again there, Darragh, you see a double layer of black at the bottom at the very end. So when especially our female dog walkers, they might be a little bit squeamish, or guys are the same. They don't feel the heat from your dog's deposit, and they don't feel the squeamish of it. So the double layer is a real benefit. And then as you have it there, if you're out on a very warm day, and obviously if you go for a long walk, the bottle that you bring mightn't last you. So you can get water from anybody walking by or in a house. You put the bag on the ground, just use the black part of it, and then put water into it, and the dog will drink out of that. And it's handy in that sense. And then obviously,
Bruno has made an appearance.
Oh, come on. Hi, Bruno.
Is he going to do a demo?
Maybe not in Darragh's house, but maybe another day. But as you can see, Bruno's a big dog now, and the bags are they're a good size, and it covers a lot of you up to your elbow, so you can pick up quite it's not just for the little chihuahuas, it's for the big Dobermans, and it covers all. So it's and you can walk with it then to a bin. You don't have to throw it into a tree, and walk down the road and put it into a bin, and it's good.
Well, to be honest, I don't think we'd ever really encourage people to throw into a tree or into a ditch.
Oh, no, but you see them in trees.
You do, but Ciaran, they're fully biodegradable, am I right?
Yes, indeed, yeah. Once they go to landfill, the thing about being biodegradable is that they have to go to landfill, a lot of these. So what happens is that in the landfill, all landfills create a certain amount of heat. So over time, due to the heat, the bag will degrade. And, in 5,000 years' time, they won't be still stuck in the landfill, and people worrying what was so special about dog fouling that people had these plastic bags on them. The other thing a lot of people tend to use, they use compost bags to collect dog fouling, and then they put it into their compost. But that's not the best idea in the world, because there's a lot of poisons in dog fouling. So if you're wondering why your cabbages aren't growing, it's because you've poisoned your compost, and then you've now killed your cabbages. And so people think that, oh yeah, we'll just put it into the compost. It's a myth out there that you can compost it. You can't.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that one.
Well, you won't be guilty again.
No. I have to get some money.
I don't actually know what Bruno's
I'm sure we can arrange that for you, Karen.
I don't know what Bruno's doing here. I think he's after finding some treats, and he's trying to root them out. So
he's not giving a demonstration of what
No, Ciaran, thankfully he's not. So, Ciaran, you've been going now for quite a good few years. I don't mean age-wise. Well, that kind of applies too, but it's always fun and banter about something, Ciaran. So, Ciaran, you supply as well to a lot of the councils around Ireland.
Mutt Mitts presently supplies to practically all the councils in the country. There's a few are still a bit shy, but we'll wear them down. Most county councils, a lot of town councils, which some kind of operate a little bit separate. There's a few municipal authorities still out there. We provide them to tidy town groups. A couple of businesses provide them in their towns. Down in Bantry, there's a company called Roa Pharmaceuticals. They actually, believe it or not, own property which has an airstrip on it, which people walk and they do their walks around there. So they have supplied Mutt Mitts for people to enjoy while they're walking on their property. So, there's companies like that. We provide them. People buy them online. Since the new website went live, we've had a lot of interest in packs of, we have 200s in a box that people will buy off us. So that's really taken off since we started the website. About 2 months ago? Yeah, so it's really helped business.
Brilliant. And I suppose, I've asked you this before, I think, but where do you see the growth going?
Where we would see growth is maybe veterinary offices, more towns around the country, you know, the not so much the very small towns, but the bigger towns, we'll say like big towns, small cities like Limerick City itself, places like that. You know, up along the Wild Atlantic Way, you know, where there's a lot of tourism places, you know, places like Bunratty Castle, you know, those, and places where people can bring their dogs and walk them. Like, obviously, you'd have above in Dublin and a lot of parks up there, out in Malahide Castle. You know, there's big, huge places that people bring their dogs, go for walks, you know, forest walks, because you can't just let your dog go into a field and let them poop in the field, because that over time will leach into the water table and can travel, you know, into water storage areas. So because of the toxicity of dog fouling, it's like a lot of farmers feel, oh, we just shape up the field, that'll be grand. But their dog fouling, even though it's only 1 or 2 out in a 50-acre patch, that could leach into the water table, and as a result, you know, I suppose foul up the water system then. So you need to pick it up no matter where you are. So we'd see business, we would be targeting business this coming year, veterinary offices, even doctors' surgeries. You know, people could, when they're in there, they say, oh yeah, we'll take a few of these with us. Other places, shops, you know, we get town councils to put. We have stands now you can put onto shop counters. So we would be hoping that town councils would start putting them into shops, so that people walking along the street, they'd see a sign, you know, complimentary dog fouling bags available here. They might go in, pick a few bags, and then they might buy a paper in the shop. So, you know, it would be win-win for everybody involved. So yeah, there's huge potential down the road. So we've grown every year since we started 2012. So we'll hope we'll keep growing in 2021 and beyond.
Fantastic, Ciaran. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the next part of our show. Ciaran, thanks very much for telling us all about Mutt Mitts. So I have I do have an announcement in relation to the our big show that's coming up on the 29th of November. We have officially this week come up with the name for it, and it is called All I Woof for Christmas. So the idea, as I explained last week, is we're going to have a variety of different businesses on. So far, we have 20 in total signed up. It's essentially the toy show for dog owners. This is all to raise funds for 4 animal welfare charities across Ireland. And we are actually going to tell you now the first 2 charities that we have. And the first of these signed up is Limerick Animal Welfare. So we confirmed Limerick Animal Welfare there a couple of days ago. And the second one, let me just find where that show is. Here we go. The second one is the National Search and Rescue Dog Association in Ireland. So those are the 2 of the first charities that are signed up for this. All funds are raised on the 29th. And our follow-up event, which I'll talk about in a sec, on the 13th of December, all funds that will be raised will be going to 4 different charities across Ireland. So we're delighted to announce Limerick Animal Welfare, who we've done so much with in the past, and that we have Sarah as well on board, and we'll announce the other 2 hopefully by next weekend, or maybe next weekend live on the show. On the 13th of December then, we have our Santa Paws sessions. So Santa himself will actually be on the show, and he'll be reading out letters from dog owners. And we also have Santa sessions, virtual sessions that are launching. The tickets for that are launching this Tuesday coming. All proceeds again go to the 4 different charities. And the tickets for that will be €8 for 1 dog. I think we have Ciaran in twice here somehow now. I don't know. We don't really have any camera from him there. But somehow, I don't know what Ciaran's playing at. This technology doesn't know him anyway.
Can you hear me there?
I can hear you.
It's a bit like New York. So good they named him twice. It's a bit like myself. I think I'm in 2 or 3 pictures here. So,
I think you are, yeah. Can't see yourself at all, but sure, look, nobody really
as you can see,
I'm
quite a genius with technology.
We'll go with that. Well, on the 13th, as I was saying, virtual sessions for dog owners with Santa. It's €8 for one dog, or it is €12 for 2 or more dogs. We will also have a raffle on both days, where all proceeds again from the raffle go into the 4 charities. And we have on the 29th, on the 13th, and on our final show for the year on the 20th of December, we have a variety of live musicians lined up as well. So all that to come. It's going to be basically, like I said, the toy show for dog owners. So that's going to be pretty cool things to come. Pretty sure that's it for today. That's all that we actually have time for. So, Ciaran, thanks again for joining us on the show. Thanks for doing the Q&A session. That was, as Ciaran said, a load of great information there. Ciaran, are you still there?
I can still hear you, you know.
Good stuff, Ciaran.
I'm somewhere in the cloud, apparently. But I can still hear you. That's the main thing. And thanks a million, Darragh. Always a pleasure.
That's great, Ciaran. And thanks, Ciaran, for talking to us today about Mutt Mitts. So, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. And join us again next week. We'll be switching gears a little bit. And we'll be talking about dealing with grief after losing a pet. That's a bit of a sad one, to be honest. But it's something that, I suppose, over the past 6 months, with COVID, with the lockdown, we've all started to realise how great dogs are for your mental health, and the impact on losing a dog from your life is very hard. So we'll be talking about that with our co-host next week, Marcus from Next Life Owns, who will be joining us to share his own experience and tell us about the product that he has designed, which is a fitting memorial for your pet. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And we're also on Patreon now as well. So if you enjoyed this episode, head on over to support us by becoming a patron of the show. And 20% of your fee will go to our Animal Welfare Fund, which we will officially be announcing next week. It's a new fund that we're setting up. And each month, in 2021, one charity will benefit. And we'll switch charities then on a monthly basis. So we're going to continue the fundraising as we go into the new year. And be sure to check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you'll find us on the Big Bark Podcast on all 3 there. And from all of us here, have a safe and a barking mad week. And we will chat to you again next weekend.
The Big Bark, listen up, dog owners. It's for you, all you canine lovers. It's your favorite podcast, The Big Bark, with your host, Darragh Bourke, and canine co-host, Bruno and Milly. The Big Bark.
G3 Assistance through Virginia's community colleges is your pathway to a new future. Get a skill. Get a job. Get ahead. You can learn more at virginiag3.com.